deliver my message, I'm going to give you a few seconds to pause the video and go find a trusted adult to watch it, approve it, make sure it's safe for you, and then you and your trusted adult can come back and watch it together, or they can just give you the thumbs up and let you know that it's okay for you to watch it alone. And I know that is super boring, and I know that's super annoying, and you would rather just not bother anybody, right? I get it. But there are some unsafe adults on the internet who would tell you to watch a video by yourself or even send them secret messages, and those adults are not safe. I don't want to be in that category of people, so I just want to make it very clear it's important to get the go-ahead from a safe grown-up before you watch this video. And if the people that you live with in your home are not safe adults for you, I recommend that you find someone who is. And I know that can be a tricky situation. I just want to look out for you and make sure that you're not doing something that could get you in trouble. So, that being said, I'll give you a couple of seconds to pause. Okay, so now that you're here, for those of you, by the way, who haven't had questions like, am I trans? How do I know if I'm trans? What do I do next now that I'm starting to have these suspicions? If those questions haven't already been banging around in your head, this is not the video for you, okay? This video is for people who have already started having those thoughts, have already started having those questions. If you're curious as to whether or not transitioning is the right step, the right decision for you, there's a few things that you can do to get closer to the right answer to that question. Feel all your feelings. You gotta ask the right people the right questions. And I know that what I just said probably sound like a riddle, right? That you need to solve. I promise it's not. Let me explain. I'll go over it into greater detail so you know what I'm actually talking about. First of all, I want to talk about what feeling your feelings even has to do with being transgender. The thing is, feeling your feelings has to do with being any way a human could possibly be, because all of us feel feelings all the time. It's a human thing. In fact, our bodies, everyone's body, is small compared to how big our emotions are. And because of that, those emotions tend to overflow. They get so big that they come out of our bodies in the form of crying, laughing, maybe yelling, screaming. There are so many ways for our emotions to overflow. And because that's a natural human thing, sometimes I think we need to be reminded of that. There are people who tell you that your emotions showing on the outside is wrong or bad. And that's a myth. It's actually very human to show your emotions. It just so happens to be that there is a healthy way to do that and an unhealthy way to do that. Have you ever tried to hold in your tears or hold down your laughter? That's probably really hard, right? I know that I can't do it. And if I try to do it, I feel bad, almost sick afterwards. It's just not a good time for me. But there are some adults who have been practicing pushing their feelings down for their entire lives, probably since they were your age, maybe even younger. And what happens is our emotions can kind of get clogged, almost like a toilet, you know? Or maybe a better way to see it would be the pipes that are connected to the toilet. You can't see what's going on inside those pipes. So if they get clogged, you're not going to notice right away. But when things get worse and worse and worse, eventually someone who uses the toilet is going to get the short straw, and they're going to realize, uh-oh, something's going on. We need to check out the pipes. And with plumbing, that can get very expensive after a while. and it can cause situations that take a lot of time and energy and effort to solve. Well, clogging up your emotions is like that too. When you push those emotions away, when you push them down for a long period of time, it can cause a clog. And eventually, that clog comes out in really terrible ways. It can come out in ways such as you saying hurtful things to other people, or if someone else's emotions are clogged, they can say hurtful things to you or do hurtful things to you. It's not a good situation, and I want to make this video about how we can prevent that from happening. And yes, I am going to explain what all of this has to do with being trans, I promise. Whatever emotions you started to feel when you learned that you were having those questions about being trans and transitioning and whether or not that's the right path for you, every feeling that it is possible for a human being to experience is a feeling that it is okay for you to be experiencing. So, happiness, anger, frustration, disgust, excitement, sadness, all of these emotions, literally every emotion you can think of, is okay for you to be feeling. Because the thing is, when humans are confronted with new situations, we experience a lot of new emotions, or maybe old emotions that we are experiencing in a different way. And that's normal. That's okay. Anyone who tells you that it's not okay, anyone who tells you that a certain way you could be feeling is bad or not true, that person is in a lot of pain. They have emotional clogging going on, kind of like we talked about earlier. They've been pushing their feelings down further and further, and they don't actually know how to feel their feelings, so they don't understand that they are saying hurtful things to you. Okay, so a good way to think of this is kind of like physical pain. Imagine that you're having a bad day at school and you stub your toe, or you get a paper cut like right in between your fingers or right underneath your fingernail. Ugh, right? Imagine you were having a bad day, but then something like that happens, and now, immediately, as my earring falls out, immediately, your day is going to be 100 times worse. And it's not going to be because of anything you did, right? It's not your fault you stubbed your toe. It's not like you did it on purpose, but that doesn't change the fact that it can make your day into an even worse one, right? Well, imagine that you had a bad day every day for years in a row. You probably wouldn't be a very nice person, right? You'd probably blow up and say angry things and mean and hateful things to people, not because you're an evil, mean, horrible, hateful person, but because you've just been in a lot of pain for a long time, and it's hard. It's hard to deal with. I get it. I understand. I just want you guys to know that even though this isn't an excuse, even though this isn't a good reason, I just want you guys to know why things like this happen, why people say hurtful things to you when they don't really know you, or they don't really see the situation from your point of view. They can't. Sometimes people who are hurting a lot on the inside say hurtful things to other people on purpose because they think it will make them feel better. It really never does. That never works. It just clogs their emotions even more. So when you scrape your knee or get a paper cut, what do you do about it? You probably clean it, maybe put some medicine on it, maybe a Band-Aid, right? But that's for a physical cut. What about an emotional cut? How do you clean hurt feelings? How do you put a Band-Aid on your emotions? What is a Band-Aid for invisible cuts? These are great questions, and we are absolutely going to talk about that later on in this video. But for now, I just wanted to let you know that people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even older, don't have any idea how to clean their emotional wounds or put medicine on the injuries inside that people can't see. They don't know how to do that, so they end up hurting other people without even realizing it. When we don't learn as kids how to clean our emotional wounds and bandage them and put medicine on them, what that translates to, what that turns into is growing up into an adult who also still doesn't know how to do those things. And it ends up being painful for everyone because that person is just emotionally bleeding all over everyone in their lives. They're overflowing with so much pain, kind of like we talked about earlier with humans having tiny bodies. We overflow with laughter. We overflow with tears. We can't keep it in forever, right? Well, when someone is in a great deal of pain, but they don't know how to take care of that and heal it, it overflows just the same way. And it gets all over everyone in their lives, causing them pain too. So if your parents, guardians, or grown-ups have ever said something or done something that has hurt you, the reason why is because their parents, guardians, and grown-ups did things to hurt them. And they never learned how to understand what was going on. If that's ever happened to you, I want to say that I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. That shouldn't have happened because grown-ups are supposed to be loving and taking care of the people, the humans, that they are in charge of. Because you're still a human. Just because you're a young human doesn't mean you're not important. Doesn't mean you're less important than me just because I'm older, right? We're all human beings. We all have a need to feel our emotions, and we all have a need to consider how us not dealing with our emotions can negatively affect other people. Long story short, your parents keep hurting you, or your guardians, or your teachers, whoever it is. They keep saying and doing hurtful things because they still don't understand how much their parents and guardians and grown-ups and teachers hurt them either. But there is something that can change about it, and we're going to talk about that. So you might be wondering what the heck any of this has to do with you being transgender, right? As of right now, it probably seems completely unrelated. I get it. But it actually has a lot to do with that. And I'm going to tell you something that I have not heard anyone on the entire internet say, not one time. As far as I'm aware, I am the first person who is saying what I'm about to tell you, which is this. There are a lot of transgender adults who are in a lot of emotional pain. Is that every single trans adult in the world? Of course not. But it's a lot. A lot. Because unfortunately, most grown-ups, whether they're trans or not, have no idea how to put medicine on their emotional injuries. They have no idea what an emotional Band-Aid looks like, or where to get one, or how to apply it, how to put it on. They don't know. And that's part of what this video is to explain. See, when someone doesn't know how to heal their emotional injuries, their pain overflows, and it gets all over everyone in their lives. So if they make a YouTube video, for example, their pain just doesn't stop there. It gets all over the people watching the video. And if people who are in a lot of pain that they don't know how to heal are typing in the comment section, then you guessed it, their pain gets all over everyone who's reading the comments in the comment section too. There's only two things that can stop someone's pain from overflowing and getting all over everybody and everything else. And those two things are this. Number one, admit how hurt they are. They gotta admit that they're feeling these big feelings. And number two, learn how to clean, bandage, and put medicine on emotional wounds. And I know that's only a short list, right? But that short list is actually a huge list for adults, because the longer a person goes without doing those things, the harder it gets. A good way to think about this is physical pain, right? Let's say that someone's chopping vegetables and they accidentally cut their finger. Their finger has a cut, it starts bleeding. That probably hurts a lot, right? But the blood will eventually stop, unless someone else has the knife and someone else is cutting and someone else doesn't stop cutting. And I know that's a really gross mental image, but I had to make that image for you because I want you to understand that the emotional side of it is not different. It's just invisible. If someone else has an emotional knife and is cutting someone else over and over again, the emotional blood never stops flowing. It just keeps going and going and going. And if that's happening to you, people are going to use that emotional knife to cut your feelings over and over and over again. Imagine that happening for years and years and years, up until you're 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old. Non-stop emotional bleeding for that period of time, that would probably turn you into a pretty mean person, right? Even though you didn't do that cutting, someone else did that cutting, you would have to deal with the consequences of it. And if you don't know how to deal with the consequences of it, other people are going to have to deal with the consequences of it too. And that's exactly what happens when people say hurtful or do hurtful things to you. It's not because they hate you. They might think they hate you, but that's not really what it is. It's because they don't know how to clean and take care of their own emotional injuries. So they're just getting their pain all over everyone else in their lives, including you. And here's something else that happens. Adults who are in a lot of emotional pain will make friends with other adults who are also in a lot of emotional pain. And not only that, but they'll get married and have kids with adults who are also in a lot of emotional pain. And this causes a lot of problems because it creates a cycle where grown-ups will have kids, hurt them, and then those kids will grow up to have their own kids and hurt them too. It goes around and around and around for generations and generations and generations. But you can be the first person in your family to stop this horrible, painful cycle. And you can do that by learning to do those two things we talked about earlier. Feeling your feelings and learning how to clean, put medicine on, and bandage your emotional wounds. How do you clean, medicate, and bandage emotional injuries so that you can think your thoughts and feel your feelings without accidentally using your pain as a weapon to hurt other people? Well, there are a few steps. Step 1, tell yourself that any feelings you have whatsoever are okay, no matter what they are. Your feelings can stay the same or they can change. Either way is okay, because feeling feelings is just something that humans do. You can even say out loud or think in your head, it is okay for me to feel this way. You can say it right now if you want. It is okay for me to feel this way. Start practicing doing this. Practice doing that as soon as you realize that you're feeling any strong emotion, whether it's happiness, sadness, anger, fear, excitement, literally any of them. It is okay for me to feel this way. And doing that all the time, developing a good habit of doing that all the time, it prevents your emotional pipes from getting clogged, and therefore will prevent you from getting your emotional pain all over other people. And on top of that, it's going to help you make friends with others who know how to do this too, so that your friends are not getting their emotional blood all over you, just like you're not getting yours all over them. Step 2, remind yourself that any person, whether they're a grown-up or not, whether they're trans or not, any person who tells you that certain feelings are not okay to be feeling inside yourself is only saying that because they are hurting from invisible wounds that they don't know how to heal. They have invisible injuries on the inside in their emotions that they do not know how to heal. That's not your fault, and you don't have to listen to them when they say those things to you. Step 3, don't try to get your feelings to go away just because they're not fun, just because you don't want to be dealing with them. That's what most people do, and it ends up to becoming that clogged emotion situation that we talked about earlier. Your feelings are little messages. They're trying to tell you something, and the only way to really hear that message is to let those emotions pass through you, kind of like a wave passes through the ocean. What in the world do I mean by that, right? Well, it means crying is okay, laughing is okay, screaming into your pillow is okay, staring at the wall with a blank look on your face because you don't know how you feel, like this, is also okay. All of that is part of feeling your feelings. Actually, you know what? Sometimes I do all of those things on the same day or even the same minute. Like, I will literally be crying, like big old crocodile tears, red eyes, and all of a sudden it's like a switch will flip and I'll start laughing. Or the other way around, I'll be laughing and then all of a sudden I'll start crying. And people who don't understand how important it is to feel your feelings would tell you that you were weird or crazy for doing something like that. But that's actually just what it looks like when you're preventing your emotions from getting all clogged up. And remember, if anyone tells you that feeling your feelings is not okay, it's just because their grown-ups told them that, and they never got the chance to learn that it wasn't true. Step 4, let the wave of emotions pass all the way through you, which means laughing until you just don't have anything to laugh about anymore. You're just tired of laughing. You don't feel like it. Crying until you're all out of tears. Screaming into your pillow until your voice just doesn't feel like screaming anymore. Feeling those feelings all the way through is the secret to making sure your emotions don't get clogged. Humans have big emotions, remember? They're overflowing constantly in a lot of ways, and it's up to us to decide if we're going to let them overflow in a healthy way or if we're going to let them overflow in an unhealthy way. A lot of people think that preventing your feelings from overflowing is an option, but that's really not an option at all. Sometimes people will go their whole lives thinking that it is an option and pushing their emotions down so that they don't overflow. But that leads to a whole bunch of problems, like getting their emotional blood all over everyone else in their lives. If you don't let your emotions come out in a healthy way, then they're going to come out and overflow in an unhealthy way. And that can look like name-calling, bullying, being mean to people, insulting people. Sometimes it can come out like people telling you that you have to change things about yourself to fit in so you can have friends. When people say things like that to you, or when you feel that way, it's because people don't understand that the issue is not you. The issue is that they don't know how to feel their own feelings, and they're getting their emotional pain all over you. Also, I just want to say that sometimes while you're feeling your feelings, they get interrupted, which means you will probably want to find a quiet place to cry or laugh uncontrollably or stare at the wall blankly like this. maybe like in the bathroom, or my favorite is right before bed, because when I'm done crying or screaming into my pillow, I can just fall asleep anyway. Step 5. After that wave of emotions passes all the way through and you just don't have anything left to feel, your body kind of starts to feel a little bit empty, a little bit tired, a little bit drained. That's normal. And what that does is it relaxes your mind so that you can make good choices and think clearly. Because it's really hard to make any choices, let alone good ones, when you are having all of these emotionals piled up inside, struggling to come out. So how does feeling your feelings really help you figure out if you're trans? That's your burning question, right? First of all, learning how to feel your feelings is going to make it super obvious when someone who has no idea how to feel their feelings tries to give you advice. Because that happens all the time. There are 2 groups of people that I want to draw your attention to. And these 2 groups of people are going to be the loudest when they are telling you what to do about feeling trans. Okay? Group A is the people who say you can't be trans no matter what. And group B is the group who says you must be trans. No exceptions. These 2 groups of people tend to be the loudest, and they also tend to be most angry and fight each other. So it can be really difficult to learn who to listen to, because the loudest people are the ones who are hurting the most. I'm going to say that again. The loudest people are the ones who are hurting the most. Group A will tell you that you can't be trans, that it's impossible, there's no way. They might even say being transgender is not real. Let's see what else. They might tell you that you cannot be trans because you are too young. They might also say that your feelings are just silly because your feelings about your gender just don't matter. That's group A. But here's the truth. Anyone who says those things to you is in a great deal of emotional pain. They actually have no idea that they're in emotional pain. They genuinely think that they're helping you out and giving you good advice. They don't realize that they're just getting their emotional blood all over you when they say those things. But that's not the only group of people who have that issue. Group B is dealing with the same problem and they don't know it. Let me give you some examples. They'll say, if you think you're trans, it must be true, because you wouldn't be feeling that way if it wasn't true. They also say, anyone who says you're not trans doesn't care about you at all. They might even say, people who feel trans are always trans, for sure. And they might even say mean things to the people or mean things about the people who thought they were trans at one point, but ended up realizing later on that they weren't and started detransitioning, which means going back to the way they were before, or trying their best anyway. Just like in Group A, the people in Group B who say things like that to you are saying those things because they're in pain. They don't actually know how to deal with their emotions. They don't know how to clean their emotional injuries. They don't know how to put medicine on their emotional injuries, and they don't know how to bandage their emotional injuries. They have all of these invisible cuts that are bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And when they say those things, that blood is getting everywhere. Again, including all over you. If you're not taking advice from Group A, and you're not taking advice from Group B, then who can you ask to tell you if you're trans or not? Nobody else can tell you whether you're trans or not for certain, for sure. You may end up even changing your mind one way or another based on your future life experiences and how your life unfolds. People can tell you what they believe is best for your health and safety, but what they can't do is make you any promises about what your future is definitely going to look like. And anyone who says that they can is just speaking from a place of fear and an inability to address their own emotional pain. Just because there's no guarantee doesn't mean you can't live your life, right? I mean, there's no guarantee about anything, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't gather information and try your best to learn as much as you can about it. And that's what this video is. This video is about helping you figure out who to ask advice of, and the best way to peel back the layer of confusion is to get the truth about what other people have dealt with, about what other people have loved, hated, and the best way to do that is to gather information from everywhere. A lot of people who are anti-trans, which is Group A, will tell you that there are certain places where you should not get your information from. And a lot of people who are pro-trans, which is Group B, will also tell you that there are a lot of places and people that you shouldn't get your information from. But both of these groups, even though they mean well, are incorrect. They are trying to control where you get your information from because they're afraid that if you get your information from the wrong place, you'll come up with the wrong conclusion, the wrong answer, and therefore you'll make the wrong choice and end up regretting it. That's why I said that both A and B mean well, but that doesn't prevent them from being wrong. The best way to come up with the best possible answer to any question, no matter what the question is to get information from as many places as possible. Where is everywhere? 4 groups of people. Group 1, adult transgender people who are happy with their decision. Group 2, adult transgender people who are unhappy with their decision. Group 3, adult transgender people who are happy that they transitioned but ended up changing their mind, and even though they don't regret transitioning in the first place, still ended up realizing it wasn't for them, so they detransitioned. And Group 4, people who did identify as trans, they thought they were going to for the rest of their lives, realized they were wrong about that, and detransitioned. The difference between Group 3 and 4 is that Group 4 is unhappy and regrets transitioning in the first place. All 4 of these groups have something incredibly valuable to contribute to the conversation, and one group is not more or less important than the other. All 4 of these groups have equally valuable information to share with you. So, it's important to look for the life stories of people from each of those 4 categories to help you understand what the trans experience is and how that is similar or different to you. Let's go over these 4 groups one by one and the important pieces of information that we can learn from their life experiences. Also, there's going to be a lot of repetition here, so bear with me. A few of the questions are going to be different, but I want to say all of it. So it's better for me to repeat than for you to get confused about where I am in the story. Group 1 is adult trans people who identify as transgender publicly, never detransitioned, and are happy with their decision. If you go through with this, you're not going to want to live the rest of your life in fear. It's actually going to be incredibly painful for your mental and emotional health, and it's going to be like pushing all of your emotions down for the rest of your life if you decide to live the rest of your life afraid to show people who you really are. That's why it's important to only ask about people who have made their decisions public. That way, you can get a good understanding of what you're hoping to find out. Now, that doesn't mean you can't listen to everybody's stories. If someone is trans and keeping it secret, absolutely, listen to them too. Remember, I said get information from everywhere. Everywhere. But when it comes to you asking how this stuff relates to your life, just ask yourself, do you want to live the rest of your life in secret? Is that okay? You want to live the rest of your life pretending to be someone you're not for the benefit of other people? That's going to clog your emotions for sure. And whether you realize it or not, you're going to be bleeding emotionally all over the people in your life. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, so that's why it's best to consider the opinions of the people who have made it public, because they're the ones who are living a life closer to what you're going to want to live if you do transition. Question 1. What is it about their decision that makes them happy? 2. How old are they right now? And how old were they when they started to identify as trans in private, just in their own head, completely alone? 3. How long has it been since then? 4. How long has it been since they started to identify as trans publicly? 5. What sparked their decision to come out? 6. What was it in their personal life that sparked their suspicion? What started their suspicion that they might be trans? 7. What was it that made them go from suspecting that they might be trans to being certain that they were trans? 8. How long did it take them to go from suspicion to certainty? 9. What did their transition consist of socially? Medically? What are some ways that transitioning has made their life easier? And what are some ways that transitioning has made their life harder? That might have been 10 or 11. I really don't remember what number we're on. Next one. What do they wish a trans grown-up would have told them before they started their transition? And finally, was there anything that would have changed their mind about wanting to go through with the transition if they had known about it when they were a kid before they started their transition? And if so, what? Okay, so that by no means is an exhaustive list of questions. Those are just the main ones that I thought of. But definitely feel free to search for any of those questions that you feel comfortable asking. And also keep in mind that some people on the internet are really excited about sharing their life story, just for people like you. And other people on the internet who are trans are more private people, and they don't really want to talk about their personal experience very much. If that is the case, it's important to respect their wishes and only ask questions of the trans people who are willing to participate in that conversation with you. Please don't take it personally if there are trans people that you want to know these questions or these answers from, but they just don't really talk about that kind of thing. It's important to ask first. Hey, is it okay to ask you some questions about your experience? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, great. But the best way is to look for different creators online who have already answered these questions in videos so that you don't have to ask anyone at all. It's also best to let trusted adults be the leaders of these conversations. Remember, some people on the internet are safe and some people on the internet are unsafe. And a trusted adult can do a great job of helping you figure out which is which. Group 2. Group 2 is transgender people who are adults and publicly identify as transgender, never detransitioned, and are unhappy with their decision. When you're researching the life stories of this group of people, ask yourself these questions about their experience. I'm going to read from the list. It's the same. It's a very similar list as before, but I know this video is going to get kind of long, so I'm going to read through them very quickly, okay? What is it about their decision that makes them unhappy? How old are they now? How old were they when they started to identify as trans privately? How many years has it been since then? How old were they when they started to identify as trans publicly? What sparked their decision to come out? What happened in their lives that first got them to suspect they might be trans? What was it that made them go from suspicion to being sure they were trans? How long did it take for them to go from suspicion to certainty? What did their transition consist of socially and or medically? What are some ways that transitioning has made their lives easier and harder? Have they ever thought about or considered detransitioning? Why or why not? What do they wish a trans grown-up would have told them before they started their transition? Was there anything that would have changed their mind about going through with the transition if they had learned about it when they were a kid? And if so, what? Group 3. Adults who used to identify as transgender but don't anymore. They publicly identified as transgender before detransitioning and are happy with their decision to transition even though they still ended up changing their mind and detransitioning later on. When you're researching the life stories of this group of people, ask yourself these questions about their experience. What is it about their decision that makes them happy? How old are they now? How old were they when they started to identify as trans privately? How many years has it been since then? How old were they when they started to identify as trans publicly? What sparked their decision to come out? What happened in their lives that first got them to suspect they might be trans? What was it that made them go from suspicion to being sure they were trans? How long did it take for them to go from suspicion to certainty? What did their transition consist of socially and or medically? How long were they trans before beginning the detransition process? What does detransition process mean for them specifically? What are some ways that transitioning has made their lives easier? What are some ways that transitioning made their lives harder? What are some ways that detransitioning made their lives easier? And what are some ways that detransitioning has made their lives harder? What do they wish a trans grown-up would have told them before they started their first initial transition steps? Was there anything that would have changed their mind about going through with the transition if they had learned about it when they were a kid? If so, what? Was there anything that would have changed their mind about going through with the detransition if they had learned about it earlier? If so, what? Group 4. Adults who used to identify as trans but don't anymore. They publicly identified as transgender before detransitioning and are unhappy with their decision and regret transitioning in the first place. When you are researching the life stories of this group of people, ask yourself these questions about their experience. What is it about their decision that makes them unhappy? How old are they now? How old were they when they started to identify as trans privately? How many years has it been since then? How old were they when they started to identify as trans publicly? What sparked their decision to come out? What happened in their lives that first got them to suspect they might be trans? What was it that made them go from suspicion to being certain? And how long did it take them to go from being suspicious to being sure? What did their transition consist of, socially and or medically? How long were they trans before beginning the detransition process? And what does detransition process mean for them specifically? What are some ways that transitioning made their lives easier and harder? What are some ways that detransitioning made their lives easier and harder? What do they wish a trans grown-up would have told them before they started their transition? What do they wish a detrans grown-up would have told them before they started their transition? Was there anything that would have changed their mind about going through with their transition if they had learned about it when they were a kid? If so, what? Was there anything that would have changed their mind about going through with the detransition if they had learned about it? If so, what? That gives you a quick rundown of groups 1 through 4, which brings me to weighted opinions. The opinions of all 4 of these groups of people are weighted equally because all 4 of these people have individual life stories that are important to be part of the conversation. I, however, am not trans. Not only am I not trans, but I've never even considered that I might be trans. Therefore, even though I'm part of the conversation just because I'm making this video, I am not a more weighted part of the conversation. I'm like a lightweight. The heavyweights, or the more important voices that you should be listening to, are the people who are in those 4 groups that I just talked about. What I'm doing with this video is something called passing the mic. That means I'm telling you who to listen to and then giving the microphone to those groups of people. That's why this particular video is not about me giving my personal opinions on any of this. Do I have personal opinions? Sure. Do I mention those personal opinions in other places? Sure. But that's not what this video is for, and that's not the focus of it. The focus of this content is to let you know where to go to get the information that you're asking for, that you need. As you're doing your research, as you're looking through YouTube creators, different creators on different platforms who have stories that they would like to tell you about their trans experience, keep in mind, there are people who overlap with group 1 through 4 and group A or B. You got to kind of keep your eyes open so that you will be able to tell which is which. Be on the lookout for people who are trying their best to give you helpful advice, but are actually just getting their emotional blood all over you when they tell you what you must do, or what you can't do, or what has to be true, or what can't be true. People like that are trying their best, but they're in a lot of pain because of what we talked about earlier. They don't actually know how to clean, put medicine on, or bandage their emotional injuries. Without even realizing it, they're taking it out on you. In conclusion, is there a 100% guarantee, foolproof way to know for sure that you are going to be trans for the rest of your life? No. But there are some important voices that can help you get closer to whatever the right answer is supposed to be for you in this moment. That being said, I want to give you a good example of how you can tell if someone falls into the category of trying to give you advice without knowing how to feel their own feelings. The only people who know how to feel their feelings without getting their emotional blood all over everyone else are the people who agree that the voices from all 4 of those groups we talked about are equally important. If someone tells you that group 1 isn't important, or group 2 isn't important, or group 3 isn't important, or group 4 isn't important to listen to, that's a very, very good sign that you can look at to determine that they're actually just in a lot of pain and aren't really in a good emotional place to be giving advice to other people. The folks you really want to listen to are the folks who say, yeah, those voices are important. Here's my story. When you heal your emotional injuries, and then after your emotional injuries are healed, you still feel like, yeah, I'm trans. That's a pretty good signal that you're going to be trans for the rest of your life. However, if you make the decision to start the transitioning process, but you still have a lot of painful emotions inside that have been struggling to come out, there's a good chance that you won't be trans for the rest of your life. That being said, take a look at the comment section if your safe adult has allowed it. I know that some people on the internet say things that they shouldn't say, so ask your safe adult if that's okay with you. If not, ask them to pick out some comments and read them to you so that you can have a good idea of what everyone else says. Otherwise, I'm really hoping that other creators, especially, most importantly, trans creators who fall within those 4 categories that I talked about, will make videos in responses to my video answering those questions so that you will be able to see those answers and know how they feel about their own life story. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And the last part of this video is going to be a message just for adults. If you are an adult, the following message is for you. If you're in groups 1 through 4, please feel free to use the comment section. Just remember that this video is for children, so whatever you say, please keep the intended audience for this video specifically in mind. Not all of my videos are for kids, but this specific one is, so please be respectful and keep that audience in mind. Also, feel free to argue with other adults in the comment section. I'm 10 out of 10 for free speech every time. I will stand 10 toes down on the fact that the social right of the people to have free speech is just as important as the legal right to have free speech. So it's important for me to make an explicit explanation about that. Just keep in mind that when you are arguing with people, don't insult their intelligence, don't name call, don't insult their character or their appearance. Doing those things lets everyone else know that you are getting your emotional blood all over the comment section. Set a good example for the next generation of people who are going to be arguing on the internet. As you disagree, do it in a respectful way. For those of you whose minds are blown right now because you feel like this is the most nuanced, respectful, well-rounded take on trans issues or trans children that you've ever seen, and you might even feel, wow, she's so brave for posting this on the internet because people are very wild about this topic. Yes, I've actually had these thoughts swirling around in my head for years, and I knew that the second I posted a video like this, I had to be willing to take a step away, well, maybe 1 million steps away from the corporate world, from the traditionally employed world, because this is the kind of content that gets you blacklisted and doxxed. So if you really like this content, I do plan on posting more trans-related content as well as other controversial issues. I'm big on the nuance, but I'm also big on the controversy. Nuanced controversy, if you will. Controversial nuance, if you will. That's my thing. That's my whole shtick. So feel free to subscribe to my channel. If you would like to financially help me provide a barrier between this first video being posted and not working a traditional job again, I invite you to consider sending $1 to one of these 2 locations I'll put on the screen. I will also put those locations down in the description box so you can check those out. That would really help me out because this is I'm at the very beginning of my YouTube career. It would be great to have a little bit of a cushion to get started. I have so many ideas. I've already got 2 more video scripts that I'm working on, and I'm really excited to continue on with this. I hope you'll come with me by subscribing and sticking around. If you did love the video, but you have other financial priorities right now, no hard feelings whatsoever. Sending the link to someone that you think would appreciate this content is every bit as valuable to me as sending $1 to one of those locations. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I will be back for the next video. I have no idea when I will be able to make a second video. It will just depend on several factors. So I'll see you next time, and